The late 1960s, a time of peace, love, and cultural revolution. But in the heart of California, a shadow fell across the Golden State. A specter haunted the highways and byways. His name, whispered in fear, was Zodiac, the Zodiac Killer. A name that still sends chills down the spines of those who remember. He was a predator who stalked lovers' lanes and city streets, leaving behind a trail of blood and terror. His victims, young and full of life, were brutally cut down. Their killer vanished into the night, leaving behind a puzzle that has baffled investigators for decades. The Zodiac Killer became a symbol of the dark underbelly of the era. He was a stark reminder that even in paradise, evil could lurk. The fear he instilled was palpable, a collective shudder that ran through communities. People were afraid to go out at night, their every move shadowed by the unseen menace of the Zodiac. The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror was short but brutal. He claimed 5 victims in 1968 and 1969, but his true body count remains a mystery. Some believe he was responsible for many more deaths. He communicated with the police and the public through cryptic letters and ciphers. He taunted them with his knowledge of the crimes and threatened further violence. The Zodiac Killer was never caught, and his identity remains one of the most enduring mysteries in American history. The Zodiac's first confirmed victims were David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. Young lovers, they were parked on a remote road near Benicia, California, on December 20th, 1968. Their evening was shattered by gunfire. David was killed instantly. Betty Lou tried to flee but was chased down and shot in the back. 5 months later, the Zodiac struck again. On July 4th, 1969, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau were parked in a lover's lane in Vallejo, California. A car pulled up alongside them. Gunshots erupted. Darlene was killed. Michael, though seriously wounded, survived the attack. Minutes later, a man called the Vallejo Police Department claiming responsibility for the shooting. He also confessed to the murders of Faraday and Jensen. The Zodiac's most brazen attack came on September 27, 1969. Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell were picnicking at Lake Berryessa. A man approached them wearing a bizarre hooded costume. He claimed to be an escaped convict. He tied them up and stabbed them repeatedly. He then walked casually away, leaving them for dead. Cecilia died from her injuries. Brian miraculously survived. On October 11, 1969, the Zodiac claimed his final confirmed victim. Paul Stein, a San Francisco taxi driver, was shot and killed by a passenger. Witnesses saw a man fleeing the scene. A police sketch was created, but the killer was never identified. The Zodiac later sent a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle, claiming responsibility for the murder. He included a piece of Stein's shirt as proof. The Zodiac Killer was more than just a murderer. He was a showman, a master manipulator who craved attention. He used fear and intimidation to keep the public and the police off balance. But his weapon of choice wasn't a gun or a knife, it was the pen. The Zodiac communicated with the authorities and the press through a series of taunting letters and cards. He sent them to newspapers, often beginning with the chilling salutation, "This is the Zodiac speaking." These letters were filled with boasts, threats, and bizarre ramblings. They provided a glimpse into the mind of a madman. The letters were often signed with a symbol, a circle with a cross through it, resembling a crosshair. This symbol became synonymous with the Zodiac, a chilling reminder of his deadly accuracy. The letters were often filled with misspellings and grammatical errors, suggesting an unrefined mind. Yet they also displayed a twisted intelligence, a cunning ability to manipulate and terrify. But the most unsettling aspect of the letters were the ciphers. Scattered throughout the text were seemingly random symbols and letters. These, the Zodiac claimed, were codes that, once cracked, would reveal his true identity. The ciphers became a tantalizing puzzle for amateur and professional codebreakers alike. They held the promise of unmasking the killer, of finally putting a face to the terror. The Zodiac's ciphers became an obsession for many. They represented a challenge, a chance to outwit a killer. The most famous of these was the 408 cipher, so named for the number of characters it contained. This cipher was sent to newspapers in July 1969, shortly after the murders of Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau. The 408 cipher was cracked within a week by a high school history teacher and his wife. The solution, however, was not what people expected. It did not reveal the Zodiac's identity. Instead, it contained a rambling message, filled with misspellings and grammatical errors. The message boasted of the killer's enjoyment of killing and his desire to collect slaves in the afterlife. Another cipher, known as the 340 cipher, remained unsolved for decades. This cipher, sent in November 1969, was much more complex than the 408. Despite the efforts of countless amateur and professional codebreakers, the 340 cipher remained a mystery for over 50 years. In December 2020, a team of 3 amateur codebreakers finally cracked the 340 cipher. The message once again did not reveal the Zodiac's identity. Instead, it contained more boasts and taunts, claiming that the killer would not be caught. The message also referenced a television show that had aired shortly after the cipher was sent, suggesting that the Zodiac was following his case in the media. Arthur Lee Allen, a name that often comes up in discussions about the Zodiac Killer. Allen was a schoolteacher, and his behavior had raised suspicions long before he became a person of interest in the case. He was known to have a fascination with cryptography and ciphers, much like the Zodiac. In fact, Allen even owned a Zodiac brand watch, which bore the same crossed circle symbol used by the killer. But despite the compelling circumstantial evidence, there was never enough to definitively link Allen to the crimes. Many believe he was the Zodiac, while others argue that the real killer remains at large. The mystery endures, leaving us with more questions than answers. Was Arthur Lee Allen truly the Zodiac? Or was he just an unfortunate man, caught in the crosshairs of one of America's most infamous investigations? The search for the truth continues as the legend of the Zodiac Killer lives on. Despite decades of investigation, the Zodiac Killer's identity remains a mystery. Law enforcement agencies and amateur sleuths alike continue to pore over old evidence, hoping to find that one crucial clue. Advances in forensic technology provide new hope, but the case is far from solved. The search for answers is ongoing, driven by a relentless desire for justice. The Zodiac Killer left a legacy of fear that still resonates today. His taunting letters and cryptic ciphers instilled terror in the hearts of many. Communities were gripped by paranoia, and the media frenzy only amplified the fear. The Zodiac's reign of terror changed the way society viewed safety and crime, leaving an indelible mark on the collective psyche. The Zodiac Killer had a profound influence on criminal investigations. His case highlighted the importance of interagency cooperation and the need for better communication between law enforcement departments. The use of psychological profiling and forensic linguistics became more prominent as investigators sought to understand the mind of this elusive killer. The Zodiac case set new precedents in the field of criminal investigation. The Zodiac Killer remains one of the most enduring enigmas in criminal history. His ability to evade capture and his cryptic communications have fascinated and frustrated investigators for years. Each new theory and potential lead reignites interest in the case, but the ultimate truth remains just out of reach. The Zodiac Killer's story is a haunting reminder of the complexities and challenges of solving such a perplexing mystery.